to be on the right show. I am buzzing. I'm totally buzzing. You know, this is part of my bucket list.
Yeah.
Come on.
I love it. I wish.
If I drop dead tonight, I've done the right show.
Yeah.
Right?
This is perfect. I wish I.
So how is it in Philadelphia then? All right.
It's good, but I'll tell you what. The ice is very bad. It's not so. Yeah, you know what happened? It snowed, and then the cold is like, how do I put it? The cold has definitely, it just froze. So now there's like these frozen patches. Yeah, it's like dangerous, but it's not so cold. I'm going to put my headphones on real quick. Go ahead.
I went out on my bike. I went to work on my bike on Monday morning.
Did you?
I came off on the ice. My knee, but I've got such a sore arse you wouldn't believe. I went down on my arse. My God, it's so sore. I had to have the next day off to recuperate. I was so stiff. When you get to my age, you can't be falling off your bike. You know, it's just not on.
Oh, I know that.
I have to tell the story.
Now, this is me, this Murder Bedtime with Lyndon. His show is awesome. He's on YouTube and any podcasting platform. I am the right shoe, Debbie Q. And we both decided to research the Springfield Three, which I have to be honest, I did not realize was the rabbit hole that it was until I started really looking through it. Because like we were just talking about, I went on and it's so old now, it's from 92, that I found stuff that was made, you know, in early, and then they didn't know, you know, it just seemed like more and more was added as the years went on. And it's,
I mean, yeah, there was so much. YouTube is just full of it, isn't it? You know, there's all different sort of things, but really the story revolves around just one thing, you know, and what happened to them people. And there's only so many witnesses and so many sort of like reasons why it may have happened. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's something you can break down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to put it short, there was 3 Stacy. Let me just bring it up on my computer for the names. It was June 1992.
I'll tell you. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell what happened. Tell basically what is the issue.
Let me just tell you. I'll tell you who they were. It was 19-year-old Suzie Streeter, 18-year-old Stacy McCall, and Susie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, 47.
Okay.
They are what we would say the supposed victims in the story.
Yeah, definitely.
And they were living in Missouri, and what we're going to say about that, apart from, let me say to you, they were living in Seattle to start with. Husband, Brent Streeter, they divorced just after Suzie was born, and they moved to Springfield, Missouri in 1980.
Okay. Yeah.
Where Sherrill married a Don Levitt in 1989. But then Don did a bit of a runner not long after, leaving Sherrill with a load of creditors. And in 1992, Sherrill decided to downsize. Now, excuse me. Now, we don't know, do we, if she downsized because she needed to pay her creditors, or whether she was just downsizing and getting away from it all because she couldn't afford everything, and because there was only her and Suzie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because at one point the son had said that he feels that she was going to try to flip the house, make money off it. So that's probably true. Maybe she just she was trying to take care of her and her daughter and her son, who the son played a big part in.
The son was called Bob, wasn't he?
Is that's his name? Okay. And he was a bit of an alcoholic, and she had kicked him out at one point because he basically, when he was on, I had watched the Disappear documentary, and he was on there saying, she told me, you're not going to behave like this under my roof. She kicked him out. Then Suzie Streeter had moved in with him at one point, and then they didn't even get along. So she moved back in with her mother, Sherrill.
Yeah, they lived together for a very short while, didn't they? Apparently, he had an bad alcohol problem, right from when he was 17.
Yeah.
And apparently, I think Suzie came home one night and he had his heavy metal on, really, really loud. She asked him to turn it down. He'd had a few beers and I think he was aggressive towards her. And she moved out and went back to her mum, where they decided that they were going to sort of disown him and have nothing more to do with him because he was so much trouble.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So the issue comes when they go to graduate. It was graduation day, June 5th or June 6th, of 1992.
Yeah.
And the girls, it was Suzie Streeter.
And there was also Stacy, also another friend, wasn't there?
Janelle.
Which was Janelle Kirby.
Janelle Kirby.
Yeah, that's right. So there was the three friends. Now, incidentally, I'm sure you know this, Debs, but the thing was, there was also they were graduating from Kickapoo, weren't they? Kickapoo High School.
Yes. Yep.
Kickapoo High School had put in a thing where they were going to have an alcohol-free party night at the school, which would be locked in until 8 a.m. the following morning. But the three girls didn't want to do that because they wanted to party.
Yeah, I did hear that. And that is, when you look back, I'm sure because the mother of, I'm jumping ahead, but the mother of Stacy McCall had come and you probably go back and forth with, I wish that they had stayed at the hotel now, because at the time she didn't want them to stay at the hotel. She wishes now they would have stayed at the hotel.
What I think happened was they had arranged to go to some parties and then they were going to stay at a motel in Branson.
Okay.
Which was 45 miles away, but it had a water park. Janice, the mother, wasn't happy with the fact that they were going to go and stay in this hotel 45 miles away overnight to get to this water park early in the morning. So when she actually got a phone call from Stacy, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
They were no longer going to go to the water park. They were going to go to Janelle's.
Okay.
She was much, much happier. But then, of course, other things happened. As you know, Janelle's was too packed.
Yes.
And they decided they wouldn't stay there. So they decided to go back and stay at the other friends,
To Sherrill.
Sorry, wasn't it? Suzie. Decided to go and stay at Susie's house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they go to the house. Now, this is where it even starts to become a mystery because I guess Janelle was the last person to have seen them. Was she the last person?
I believe Janelle said that, I believe Janelle said that she saw them leave between 2 and 2:15.
Yeah, and then there was a there's so much weird stuff because a waitress had said she saw them between 1 and 3 a.m. at this diner, but that would totally, the timeline is very odd because people started coming forward saying they saw them here and saw them there. But we do know that at some point, these girls were in Sherrill Levitt's house, and the next day, when Janelle called them to go to this water park that, you just were saying, there's no answer. She said she called like 10, 20 times and nobody was answering the phone. So that her and her boyfriend got alarmed and they went to go over. And I'll tell you what, you had said this to me in the beginning, and at first it never hit me, but it was weird. They came up to the house, all the cars were parked outside, and there was a light outside the porch. Now the light itself wasn't broke, but the outer shell of it was. And then they cleaned it up. But when you first had said, it just didn't hit me. But then I'm thinking, they just suddenly got this broom? Not that I'm saying anything. It was just weird I don't know. My first instinct would have been to run in that house if I seen a broken light on the ground. But, who knows? He could have just been thinking, oh my God, let me clean this up for her. It just was another weird incident in many weird incidents to follow. So what did you think? So they go into the house. There's nobody there except the dog Cinnamon, the Yorkie.
Yes, which I was very, you wouldn't believe the joy it brought to me that nothing happened to the dog.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? They didn't hurt the dog. Whoever it was wasn't as bad as we first thought.
Yeah. Cinnamon is there.
That's terrible, but honestly, I don't know. Britain is a nation of dog lovers. There you go. But at first, when I first heard about the light on the porch, I was first thought, what on earth are you doing clearing up the glass, right? But then when I thought about it later, this bit of the story I probably would have done. I might have cleaned the glass up if I saw a load of broken glass on the porch.
Me too.
It's a possibility I would have done that. But it's what went on in the house afterwards that I can't get my head round. I can't get round. I'm telling you this from my point of view right at home. If I left my house unlocked, right, and decided to go for a walk, my car's in the drive, I've left my wallet at home, but I've left the front door open. I don't expect 15 people to 18 people to trudge around my house, made me bed, and all this sort of stuff. I just can't get my head around that. That's bad. Somebody's listening to me phone messages and deleting them.
I know. I'm like, because I heard one podcast was like, back then I had several answer machines in my day. I never had one that automatically deleted anything. It always came up, would you like delete? So some people were saying, it automatically deleted, but I do believe the mother was in such a state. I think she probably deleted it herself. But like you said, what are you doing running around in these people's that part was baffling. It really is.
Somebody actually done their washing up.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, and it's a terrible thing to say, I must try this.
Yeah.
I must leave my car in the drive. I'll leave my car in the drive. I'll leave my wallet and everything at home. I'll go for a walk, come back about half a day later, and maybe all my house will be done.
This is our new thing. Clean up my house. It's just like you think like, it is baffling. That part is wild. And then the thing that gets me is Janelle says she walks in. And I have no reason not to believe her. The phone rings and it's an obscene phone call. And then they call again. Now that only freaked me out a little because when we were little, obscene phone calls were this big thing in this neighborhood. It was such a big thing to crank call. And I remember there was a crank caller, and this is disgusting. In this day and age, they would have tracked this guy down and arrested him. But we used to go to the school, and across the school was an Acme, and there was a phone, and the phone would ring. It was a payphone. We would answer it, and this guy would always be like, I see you girls. And he would say exactly what we were wearing. He must have been right across the street looking at us. And we would talk to the guy. We were 11. We were, young kids. Nowadays, oh my God, all hell would break loose. But the thought is, like, back then there was a lot of crank calls. Were these guys, how did they know they were in there at that exact time? Or was it just a coincidence? I feel like, was somebody watching that house? I don't know. That part was a mystery, too, about the phone call. The two obscene phone calls.
The obscene phone calls, I don't get that at all. I really don't get that at all. I just know that if somebody rang me up and I heard an obscene phone call, I'd remember every word.
Yes.
I'd remember every word. And this is why, just jumping forward a little bit there.
Yeah.
When Janice, this is Stacy's mum, yeah?
Yeah.
When she says about her phone call, and she says she can't remember it, and she accidentally deleted it, I don't believe that for 1 minute.
I agree.
I believe the police have told her to say that. The police know what's on that thing, and they don't cheat. there's no way that she would forget what was on that phone call, and there's no way she'd accidentally delete it. I don't believe it.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? They probably told her, keep that to yourself in case anybody ever says what was said, because then they'll know. I mean, I still remember what those obscene phone callers said to me when I was 11. I can still tell you.
Yeah, I can remember the only one anybody ever sent me.
Was it a good one? No. I mean, but you remembered.
It was from a man.
Really?
That was a bit disturbing. And it was many, many years ago. I honestly can't divulge what it said. It's too... I'm not a rude person of any sort. I even swear when I'm doing a podcast.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
When I'm at work, I swear like a trooper. Can I swear when I'm doing a podcast? No.
You're right. I do try to limit that. Once in a while it slips out, but I'm very conscious of that. But see, you remember that phone call.
Calls that you would never forget it.
Yes.
You know, she was heartbroken. She's not trying to cover anything up. She was heartbroken, lost her daughter. She still is heartbroken. You know, she still won't even let her be declared dead. She's absolutely heartbroken about it. If you see her, how devastated she is.
Yeah, devastated.
You know, she definitely wouldn't forget that phone call, and she wouldn't delete it by mistake. That's something that the police have told her to do.
That's what probably happened, Lyndon. They probably didn't delete. You're right. I think you're right. I do absolutely agree with that, because, I mean, I know even from here, like the homicide detectives, there's so much they keep because they just don't want to give it out to the public. And that's true. They probably sit on it, and it's just, but you got to do it, because then if somebody says that, you would know that they knew more than they were saying, so they go into the house, and they, the pocketbooks were lined up side by side. And this is true. Back in the day, when I would tell my mom I was going somewhere, we did not have cell phones. So you would basically say, I'm going to my friend's house. If my mom, now we pretty much lived very close to each other, but my mom might not see me or hear from me for 10, 12 hours. And that's just how it was. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have what we have now. There's nothing odd about that whole timeline, because it does make sense with the technology of that time. It comes to the part, and of course, at first they looked at the brother right away, but they quickly eliminated him. And you can tell even in today's, when he is interviewed today, he's devastated, because he said, I've never made up with the girls.
That's right, yeah.
And that's a shame, because he's got to feel guilt, like I should have been in that house. I can't imagine. The brother quickly eliminated. I mean, I don't know which part you want to tackle next, because the part with her ex-boyfriend, which part?
Well, first of all, Janice is still under the impression that she's at Janelle's.
Yes. Yes.
It takes Janice a long time to find out that actually Stacy is not at Janelle's. She went back to Suzie's. So after trying to get in touch with her for a long time, she goes over there as well, because by this time, Janelle has gone. Her and her boyfriend have gone. So she goes and does her looking around and everything, and finds out that there's all the, what you call, I think you call them, purses, we call them handbags.
Yeah.
And a pocketbook is a purse. So we better get that just for the UK listeners. They're looking through the handbags, and in the purses, it was found, wasn't it, that Sherrill had $900.
Yes. Yes.
She just got paid, and she'd not banked it yet, so she actually had $900. Also, they were both chain smokers, Sherrill and Suzie. They hadn't taken their cigarettes and their lighters, and also Stacy's migraine medicine was still in her purse. Never went anywhere without her migraine medicine. So they've got all these things. They would not have gone without these things. Even to the fact that they could account for all of Stacy's clothes, and the only thing they could account for was her underwear and a t-shirt.
Oh no!
So she was actually in stuff that she got ready for bed.
I mean, so whoever took them, whatever happened was definitely, I think, did somebody come in with a gun? There was no, another thing that is a little alarming is there was absolutely no disruption. There was no, I mean, outside of the broken glass, the inside of the house was relatively unscathed. I'm thinking of somebody coming in and like get out and they're, mass chaos, bang, bang, bang. There was none of that. It was something very sudden and slick, meaning
something very
shady.
Yeah, it was all very strange. It makes you wonder whether those two girls that came back were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, that's it. Who do you think was that's a good point. Who was the target?
Well, I have a theory on that, but I think we'll leave that till
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got one too.
Yeah. I have a little bit of,
So, if we end the sort of background bit, what's happened is, I mean, the telly was on in the living room and it was showing static.
Which is disturbing.
In Sherrill's bedroom, there was a reading glasses on the side of the nightstand, but there was an open book on the bed. So she had presumably been reading in bed. Suzie had taken her makeup off and got undressed. Stacy also had got undressed for bed. But in one of the bedrooms, I think it was Susie's, somebody had opened the blinds as though they were looking outside. You know, when they opened two
Yes. Yes.
That was left there, so somebody was looking outside. But as you say, that is about it for what is there in the house. The dog is agitated. When they get there, the dog has not been harmed, but it's very agitated. I believe it's a Yorkshire Terrier called Cinnamon. Yeah, very agitated.
Cinnamon.
But apart from that, Janelle and her boyfriend had swept up the glass. They then disappeared. Then a few hours later, Janice appears, and after 16 hours, she then reports them missing to the police.
And they did at that time ask her what Janice said got her on the ball of starting to, print those flyers. They printed 40,000 flyers.
One place has still got their
flyer up. I would too. I mean, I commend the community for supporting them that way, because sometimes, people are funny, but she said when the police asked her for the dental records, she said that's when it hit her like a ton of brick. What? She said, I see my daughter graduating last night and now they're asking me for her dental records. I mean, it had to really just shock her. And that's when she printed the flyers and they went to the stores. All the stores seemed very gracious in hanging them up. And then the next point is, I guess they start really looking for them, but there is really not that much to go on. Like I said, they brought in the brother quickly, but they eliminated him fairly quickly. And then they started looking elsewhere. Yeah. Where are these girls? What happened? Whatever happened was done very precisely, for lack of a better word. They got them out of that house in a very quick manner. Like you said, if the one girl's wearing underwear. Oh, and then there was a sighting. A woman had said, now they never substantiated this, they believed it to be credible. It was a greenish colored van. Some disputed the color, but it was one of those vans, like those old school vans.
It was a Dodge panel van, wasn't it?
Panel van. That's the word. Yeah. And she said that she saw somebody come up at 6:30 a.m. She was sitting on the porch and she heard there was a girl who looked stressed in the front, and she heard somebody from the back saying, pull out of here, and something to the effect of, don't do anything stupid, back out of here quietly. That's what the lady claims.
I think that was the exact words.
Okay. Okay, so that was it. But the police did think this was credible because they actually got a panel van and put it outside of their station and said, does anybody recognize this? They didn't find anything, after that sighting.
Well, there was another guy, wasn't there? There was another guy who said he'd seen the girl sitting in the van.
And with a color difference.
He'd taken down the registration number, but later just thrown it away.
Oh, yes!
They tried to hypnotise him They tried to hypnotise him, the police did, and he managed to remember 3 digits, I believe.
Wow, that's got to be so
That's
frustrating.
all he can remember. That was another thing that went down the alley.
And if that's true, I mean, say it was true, and say it was them. Who were they and where were they taking them? I mean, if that, because I'm just trying to think of, I am always trying to put myself, like I try to submerge myself into that night of being those 3 girls, of being in that house, of somebody knocking on the door or whatnot, and then getting out of this house scared to death. They had to be scared to death. I mean, no matter what was going on, because ultimately what happened could not have been good. And and I try to think, where did they take them? What happened after that? They had psychics coming out, and what happened? Where are they? What did happen? And you go through a whole bunch of things. It's disturbing on so many levels. 3 girls. 1 girl is bad, but 3 girls that's what they kept saying.
I mean, it looks very much like it was more than 1 person, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The only reason they think it could be 1 person was to keep them under control. He'd have had to have 1 of them driving and 2 of them tied up in the back. Wouldn't have been able to keep control of 3 women. It's why they may have, whoever did see that map might have seen Suzie driving. I don't know if the police hold much credence with it, Deb. I think they think, how did the woman who was sitting on her patio say that? And, with the windows of the van closed. And also, it'd be very hard to identify it as the right person. So that's a blind alley.
Yeah, and it's true. Like, first of all, I can barely hear as it is. I would never be able to hear anything. I agree. I did hear somebody bring that up, which was a good point. How did she hear that? It is a great point. And then from there, it became, I guess that's when they started delving into the background of the other girls, which brings up the one girl's ex-boyfriend. Was it Suzie Streeter?
It's Suzie Streeter's 2 boyfriends, isn't it? There's 2 boyfriends.
I have their names written down. Dustin Weckler and Michael Clay.
Dustin Reckler.
Yeah.
And Michael Clay is only Dustin Reckler's friend, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. But Dustin Reckler, you tell the bit about Dustin Reckler, all right?
Yeah. So he had apparently this guy was a real piece of work. He was making money off of going into mausoleums, graveyards, and whatnot, digging out literally cutting off the heads to get to the gold teeth in the heads of these dead skeletons, people, etc., taking the gold and bringing it to a pawn shop where he would get money for it, and he got caught. And they were now... Suzie Streeter said she was going to fully cooperate with the authorities and testify against him. And that was coming up. That's when this literally happened. Was like right before. Now, people brought up the fact, that they wouldn't have got much time for that. But let's get back to what they were doing. Just the fact that it's a little morbid that you're cutting off heads.
It's ghoulish, isn't it? It's so ghoulish.
It's ghoulish. Yes, absolutely. That's a great word. Ghoulish. Who does that? That's... I've never heard of that before. Yeah.
I've heard it, but Burke and Hare, but that was to sell the bodies.
Yes.
Medical science. This is actually taking gold teeth out of school spaces. Oh my God.
That's disturbing on every level. Crazy. And then that is not normal. That's, and I know people sell anything. I understand that. But usually get the copper wire out of an old abandoned building, not the heads off of dead people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it goes to another level of weird.
From what I heard as well, that during the interviews by the police, Michael Clay,
yes.
He actually said, I hope they're dead.
Yes, he did say that. And that's, and you're being interviewed and that's the statement you pull out?
On the sheriff at the time, Terry Knowles.
No, what's the...
Apparently when Terry Knowles, he was the one who interviewed the two, Reckler and Clay, himself. And apparently he was known for doing the interviews himself, that rather than letting better, well-trained detectives do it, he liked to sort of be actually disregarded them from his inquiries. Well, now, the sheriff who's in charge now of Springfield, he says they shouldn't have been disregarded.
Absolutely not.
Going that way.
I absolutely agree. I think they should not have been, because, you know, I think people are just automatically, like, I've heard sex trafficking. I know we're going to get to Robert Cox because he was a huge part of this story. That is true. To discount, you know, I've heard of people do far worse for far less, that kind of thing. People freak out. It could have been, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, did these guys like say, okay, let's scare these girls? And then they went over and then something out of their control happened and it became a mess. Like, that's the part, you know, what?
I actually agree. I've heard that, and you saying that, I agree with that. That is something that could have happened. They did, you know, I'm not saying they did anything.
Right.
But if it was them, they could quite easily have gone over there. I don't think they wanted to kill him, but they wanted to do something and things got out of hand. I agree that could be part of it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times I've just heard of like kids that like right now Philadelphia's homicide rate is through the roof. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times their stories are, well, it wasn't supposed to go to this level. This wasn't supposed to happen. And that's all I could think of when I was going through this. I'm thinking, you know, because we don't know what happened, anything's up in the air, and that makes just as much sense as anything else. And it's like two rabbit holes, because you can go through each.
You can, Deb. I mean, did you come across the boyfriend before that one, the one at the mausoleum and the graveyard, the guy called Mike Kovacs?
No, I don't think I heard of that one.
Well, this was the boyfriend that she had before that. And he was before Dustin Reckler, and she actually lived with him for 3 months and had a very abusive relationship with him.
Wow.
And which ended up in her getting a restraining order against him.
I did not even hear that part. That's
the boyfriend she had before Dustin Reckler. He actually was questioned, and he did take a lie detector, and he did pass. So.
Okay.
Maybe he can be, you know,
eliminated.
Sort of
Wow, yeah. I didn't even hear that one though. See what I mean? There's so many.
If you go looking, like the pair of us presumably got looking at different things.
Yes.
You know, went down different things where there's different information. Where you're saying to me something I haven't heard.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I'm saying something to you that I hadn't heard. So you know, it's like two minds.
Yes, exactly. Because there was a whole bunch of people that started coming up, you know, like after they got to the, you know, because I guess we'll get to Robert Cox, but then even after Robert Cox, there was like this Gerald, he comes up and it just became more and more like, you know, this serial killer was there, and then they bring up this sex trafficking, and it started to get like, what, you know, at this point, I watched so many YouTube videos, it became, as time went on, more and more things started piling on that could have happened, you know, because if you listen to the earlier ones, it was like 2 things, you know, then it got to be 10 different things.
Well, things have been added all the time, innit, like this and that. But also, you've got these, you know, these inmates who, you know, have got this complex. What's it, a narcissist complex?
Yes.
Whatever it is, who admit to everything.
Yeah.
Just so they can stay in the news. The narcissistic. Yeah, that's it. Narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
So, you know, and as you say, we're going to get on to Cox, who is definitely narcissistic.
Oh my God. He comes out. Now, apparently, Robert Cox did live in that area at that time. Now he comes out. My first thing when somebody admits to, he comes into the thing and says, I know they're dead, but he doesn't give any he says, oh, I'll let you know after my mother dies. But my first thing when somebody like that says something like that, my first instinct is he's trying to get leverage for some crime to get maybe less time on. It's the first thing I always think of when somebody does that.
Have you got the history of Cox there? What he did?
He does have an interesting backstory. And he was a weird guy. But you know what? You're right. He absolutely comes across as such a narcissist. Robert Cox, a convicted kidnapper and robber, claimed that he knew the women had been murdered and that their bodies would never be recovered. He was imprisoned in Texas as a convicted kidnapper and robber and the suspect in a Florida murder. He told the journalist that he knew the three women had been murdered and buried and claimed their bodies would never be recovered. He had been living in Springfield in 1992, and he had told investigators that he was with his girlfriend at church that morning after the girls disappeared, which she corroborated. However, later she recanted her statement and said that Cox had asked her to say that. Cox also stated that he was at the home of his parents the night of the disappearance, and they confirmed this alibi. Authorities were uncertain if Cox was involved with the case or if he was just seeking recognition for the alleged murders by ensuing false statements, which you're never sure about because he had killed this woman, and her name was Sharon Zellers. Yes. Yeah, she was for a long time. I believe that her murder was unsolved for a while, right? Sharon Zellers?
10 years.
10 years. Wow. Okay. So that's why they were believing perhaps, but I'm thinking, I don't know. What do you think of Robert Cox? What do you make of him saying that they're dead? I know they're dead. I mean, was he, he wasn't saying anything specific.
I'll just fill in a bit about
what I
know about Robert Craig Cox, all right?
Yeah.
And see what you think. Now, Robert Craig Cox, he was an ex-Army Ranger, yeah?
Yeah.
And he was found, he was taken to trial for the murder of a Sharon Zellers in December, I think it was 1978. He murdered her on her way home from work at Disneyland.
Yes, yes.
He actually went back to his hotel room where he was staying with his mum and dad on holiday and was admitted to the hospital because he'd lost an inch of his tongue.
That's right. I do remember. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I do remember this, but tell this story. This is good.
An inch of his tongue, which he said that he'd lost in a fight. Now, it's more likely that Sharon bit it off.
Good for her.
But anyway, it's probably the chief bit him off. Anyway, he didn't get tried for Sharon's murder for 10 years, in which time he was already in prison serving 9 years for attacking 2 girls who escaped from him.
Oh my God.
He was then found guilty. He was then found guilty of Sharon's murder, but then was acquitted due to lack of evidence on appeal. So guess where he moved? So guess when he came out of prison where he moved to? Missouri.
Oh my God.
Where, funnily enough, he got a job in the same car selling place. What do you call them there in America? Places, garages that sell cars. Car dealership.
Yeah, car dealerships, absolutely.
He gets a job in a car dealership in the same garage as Stacy's dad.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I forgot that tongue. I did read he kept saying he bit his tongue, but they were like, no, it's facing the wrong way. They could tell that somebody bit it. Yeah. Which I was like, good for you. Yeah.
He must have had plastic surgery or something because he lost a bit of tongue.
Oh, so, it was like an inch. Yeah. Oh, that's good for her, though.
Stacy's dad didn't remember him. at all.
Wow.
But he did work briefly in the same garage, and Stacy used to take food and sandwiches to her dad's office. There you go. There's another bit of.
I mean, because
to stick in the pot.
and this guy could, you don't know, like, man, that just makes it so nerve-wracking that any wacko can see a nice girl and you don't know if they're become obsessed with them. And just the fact that I always come back to that obscene phone call, because when Janelle walked in there and she says that she got 2 obscene phone calls, were they watching the house when she was in there? That's what I always take from that, is that they were watching that house still to see what happened after they got those girls. It might be totally false, but it's just such a coincidence.
The only thing, Deb, I've got with that is, did we have mobiles in '92?
I had a pager. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where'd he come from? Yeah. Yeah. Where'd he make the call?
What did he ring on?
Yeah, you're right.
Unless I don't think I had
No.
I don't think I had a mobile until 95 or 96.
And I was even late. I didn't even get one till 2001. But my sister had one around 96. But I really don't think, unless there was a payphone, you're right. Well, how would he even, or a house nearby, how would he even have seen it? That's a very good point. Wow, you forget how much we couldn't do without mobiles. It's amazing.
Exactly.
That is so true.
I think that might. I don't think we had mobiles in '92.
No.
I don't think we did.
The ones that
they were them bloody great big things that were like a brick.
Yeah,
you had to carry the battery around. You had to carry the battery around with in the other hand.
Oh my God, I remember my friend had one, and it was, like you said, it weighed about 50 pounds. That is so true.
Crazy.
So that's true. I mean, such a weird, that's amazing. It breaks my heart because I always go back to this, they had to be so scared. It drives me crazy because whatever happened to them was not good. And I just think, and if Cinnamon, the dog, Janelle said when she walked in, the dog had jumped into her arms. So Cinnamon was gravely upset. And dogs are so perceptive. And I have a Yorkie myself, and he is very perceptive to my feelings. You know that he saw whatever happened. And even if it wasn't, if it was just them being taken out of the house, the dog knew it was not good. They have those senses. Their dogs are truly amazing. That's a whole other point. I just get so I just think of how did they had to have had a gun. How else would they have got them out of the house? And their 3 cars are still sitting out there. None of their, you know what I mean? So their cars are there. Their purses are there, and the cigarette thing. I mean, my sister smokes. She's not a chain smoker, but she smokes. But if I saw her cigarette staying somewhere, that would alarm the hell out of me, because I know my sister would not go without her cigarettes or her cell. Well, there was no cell phones, but she wouldn't go without her cigarettes, and she wouldn't go without her purse. There's just no way. I mean, that's that's a woman's right arm, is your purse.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you pick up on, as we say, Cox likes to stay in the limelight. He loves it.
Oh, he does.
He's been interviewed since, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Where he says that he knows that the Springfield Three are dead.
Yes.
He knows for a fact they are dead, but he will not divulge any more information until his mother dies.
Yep, and she's still alive.
And she's in her 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So what?
So he said, but I actually don't think he did it, and I don't think he knows anything about it. He just wants to stay in the news.
Lyndon, I completely agree with you. There's something about him that rings false, and I can't.
It does.
I just think he's a punk that wants his limelight, and he's actually being very. What a shitty thing to do. I have to curse there, because this poor woman she's trying to find her daughter, and you're giving her false hope that she'll even get closure. I just don't believe he had anything to do with it, and I think that's a shame to do that to somebody. You know, what a punk. But I agree. I think he just wanted attention. There was another guy named Gerald, and they were thinking him for a while because he was living in the area at the time. Let me see. Gerald Carnahan. He was...
I don't think I know this one, so you'll be telling me something here because I don't know this one.
Okay, yeah, he came up later on in the game. Like the earlier versions of the Springfield Three had nothing about Gerald. The later ones, he seems to be more and more talked about. I'm bringing him up now because okay. Do you have another one there while I look up Gerald?
No, I don't think. The only thing I've got now is really on Kathy Baird.
Oh, well, what's that? I don't know that name. And I'll look up Gerald.
That's Kathy Baird. That's the woman who was investigating it. Moved to Springfield and did the one with the bloke who did the ground searching thing on the...
the psychic. She's a psychic?
She's not psychic.
Yeah, what I don't know this story. I know she said something about this guy had went over. They wanted to tear up the hospital, the grounds of a hospital. Yeah, what is that about?
Yeah, what happened? Well, this Kathy Baird, right? Basically, I know you can switch this round in the edit, can't you, if you want to?
Yes.
So Kathy Baird was a woman who moved to Springfield, heard about the Springfield Three, and decided to become this sort of private investigator who was going to crack the case.
Okay.
So what she did was that she found out that there was a rumour going round that they were under a hospital car park, the Cox South Hospital. Get the irony of that. So she got this rumour was going around that the three bodies were buried under the Cox South Hospital, right? So she decides to believe this, and she gets this guy called Rick Norland.
Okay.
Now he's one of these people who has got this state-of-the-art machine that he runs over the concrete, and it shows you what's under the concrete. Now he finds three abnormalities under the concrete, right? So she wants to dig up the car park, right?
Okay.
So she goes to the police and asks them if they need to. There's three bodies under the car park. They need to dig up the car park. Now, anyway, I looked a bit more into this, and I was told that this all started by a psychic putting it online that he'd been told that the three women were underneath the Cox South Hospital, and that's how it all went. It went viral on. There's no truth to it at all. But anyway, this Rick Norland decides he's seen. I mean, if you watch I've got to say, if you watch the documentary, it's like a baby stroller, with a rusty box underneath, and a laptop on the top, and this is the high quality state of the art thing. But apparently, he'd helped at Ground Zero.
Really?
You can't knock it if he's...
Oh yeah.
He's at Ground Zero. Who am I to knock it?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's what it looked like.
Wow.
She wants to dig up the car park. She's not going to be allowed to dig up the car park, right? Anyway, there's people on there. There's all these surveyors and there's construction men. They're saying that there's no way the bodies will be under there because the car park was built a year after the murders, and there would have been excavation to put the stuff underneath the concrete and all that. So they would have been dug up anyway. Would have found them, right? So all these surveyors. Anyway, the guy I was listening to said, but it wouldn't hurt. He doesn't believe they're down there, but it wouldn't hurt to just put a borehole in and a probe and have a look. To which this other construction bloke said, look, if there'd been bodies under there, they would have decomposed and they would have made an air pocket where a car would have fallen down there by now. So anyway, so they're poo-pooing all that, but anyway, they're still, trying to get the police to let them, or whoever it is, the authorities, to dig a bit of the car park up to see if it happens. But most people said it's near a rural area. There is absolutely no reason to put it in the middle of the town. You know, dig somebody in the middle of the town. Well, they could have took them out to a field and buried them. So it doesn't make sense. Anyway, this Kathy Baird, right, she gets asked to go on Crime Watch Daily, which apparently is a big program in America, yeah?
Yes, it is.
I don't know anything about it, but it's a huge program in America. So she gets asked to go on Crime Watch Daily, and because she knows who killed the Springfield Three. She's done all the investigation, and she now knows exactly who it is.
Really?
So anyway, she's been interviewed by this lady who I'm sure is very famous in America. I don't know, but she's very famous in America. She's asking the questions, and she asks us, well, this is the big question, Kathy, who killed the Springfield Three?
And,
I can't tell you.
And did she answer?
I've received loads of threats and everything. And so, no, first of all, she just downrightly says, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. To which you hear the producer, in one of the most embarrassing things I've heard, he's getting involved and goes, are you kidding me?
Oh!
You're on primetime TV. The reason we're all here and you're here is for you to tell us who killed, you know, after all your investigation to Springfield 3. And she goes, no, I can't tell you. I've had death threats. I've got to leave it alone. I can't tell you. And he goes, well, why have we done all this then? Why have we done all this if you're not going to tell us anything? So, and that's where I'm afraid Kathy Baird's thing.
Do you think she knows, or do you think it's just like
I don't think she's got a clue.
Yeah, I guess people just want this attention, you know.
You know, I think
Go ahead.
everybody wants to know.
That's it.
But you can't just magic these things up. If it, you know, it's an amazing, it's a perfect. I mean, if it is a murder, we don't even know it's a murder. If it's a murder, it's a perfect murder.
You're right. That's the thing. That's what makes it so baffling. Is it is a perfect murder. It's like, how did you get not one but three people out of the house quietly? Nobody knows what's happened to them. It's just unbelievable. I do see this Gerald guy. I'm looking him up. He had come up, but it seems like his connection is a very loose one. He was a serial killer.
Yeah.
It's not like everything else. He had killed a girl named Jackie Johns. And he somehow came up because I believe Judge denies Gerald. He had been convicted of a murder. Jackie Johns, a 20-year-old waitress, she was found dead in 1985, and later through DNA evidence, this guy, Gerald Carnahan, was linked to her crime. His name did come up with the Springfield Three, but it's like a loose... I'm trying to think. I think because of his vicinity of where he lived in Missouri, yeah. So it just happens, you know, he's like another piece of crap guy that's in jail. And I think his name just came up because of the link between where he lived. I don't think there was I don't think he was like Cox and came up and said, I killed the Springfield Three. It was more of this loose connection where his name came up, and people that are, you know, the online sleuths that are very into, you know, investigating who could have done this, his name came up in conjunction with the vicinity of where he lived. And the fact that it took so long linking the DNA evidence to this Jackie Johns, but they don't even have DNA. I mean, what would they do? See, this is the problem. They never found their bodies, any of these women. So what would they do with DNA in this situation? I mean, as far as, like you say, this Gerald Carnahan was how would they even, there was no way they could connect him because there's nothing scientific to, you know what I mean? Like, it really is just his name. I kept hearing Gerald Carnahan.
There was no DNA anyway because all the friends and family had cleaned the house up.
Yeah. You know, that's a good point. Oh my God. Lyndon, you're right. I mean, that's the thing. There's nothing. Do you know That is so true. Any evidence that could have been of value is basically had been eliminated back then. And the sheriff that I watched, he did keep reiterating that. What are we supposed to do when we're walking in days later? There's 18 people have been through there. And there's nothing. I mean, there's not even like blood somewhere or if there was, it's been cleaned up. Where do they go from there? Where do you go? Besides these like everyone's bringing forth a possibility, and there's like the stray Robert Cox is coming out. There's no real definitive I mean, outside, I'm telling you, if you go through the whole story, the people with the gold teeth, I mean, to me, out of everybody, they're more apt to have been the perpetrators of this than anybody else. You know what I mean? It really is baffling. I kept looking and I'm
honestly,
like,
I mean,
it's mind-blowing.
You can search. I mean, I'm really pleased that you asked me to do this.
Yes.
It was so interesting. I had never heard Springfield 3 before, and I hope you're pleased that I am saying the Springfield 3 and not the Springfield 6.
No, when I saw that,
You must have thought, who is this idiot?
No.
Springfield 6.
When I saw that, Lyndon,
I'm seeing double that, mate.
I said, "Oh my God, he found out something and I don't know." That's what I first thought. I said, "He knows something."
You know what? I put posts up and everything saying, "Listen to me," and Debbie from the right shooter at the Springfield 6. I had to take them all down. I still felt such an idiot.
I was dying.
But anyway,
I loved it. Cause I'm thinking, oh my God, he found 3 more bodies. That is literally what I thought. I'm like, wow, he cracked the case. Like, you don't know what was going through my mind. And then when you said it was an accident, I was dying.
you hadn't told me. Everybody else was being so polite. Nobody's going to tell me. People were just liking my post.
Aren't they the best?
65% of my listening audience is from the US, right? And I bet they were all going, what is he on? He's going to do a podcast about this crime. I don't even know how many of them died.
I'm telling you, I love people. I do. I've made so many like weird mistakes, and you're right. They just love it. That's why I love the podcast community. They just love you. They don't care. You go right ahead. We'll figure it out.
But what a great case, Deb. You picked a good one, and I enjoyed looking into it so much. I mean, I was watching.
It's riveting.
Documentaries, reading up. Oh my God! I mean, there's also, there's another theory that I heard right at the end of my thing was that she was killed by drug dealers because apparently they were saying that she had a massive cocaine habit, money to drug dealers, and the 2 girls coming back were just collateral damage.
Really? I mean, that could be. I'm telling you, whenever I think of whenever I hear of somebody getting killed, unfortunately, and again, I just go back to Philadelphia because our homicide rate is off the chain. I mean, this last year, 2020, we had 500 homicides. 500, which is ridiculous.
499.
Yeah, well, you know what? It was 499, and then they added one on. I swear to God, I was like, I mean, this sounds horrible, but I kept saying it's going to reach 500, and then a call came in at 12:30, but because the guy died at 11:48, they tacked it on. Swear to God, true story. But 99% of all homicides are either drug related or familial related, meaning the husband and wife got into a fight. It's usually the person knows. It's rarely this out of the blue. Oh, I mean, that happens, don't get me wrong, but most of the time it's those 2 things, drugs or family.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad that most of the times it's somebody you know and love. Yeah. That's the scary part. I've seen so many husband and wives get into fights and mistakenly it happens, or, I mean, it's such a shame, but it's up there. It's up there, it's high. Drugs doesn't, it's as, that's as good as any other option. And the Springfield Three, when I first had suggested it, I forgot what a rabbit hole it was because I was just looking at something that wasn't solved that we could discuss. And I forgot how good it was because I started looking. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot how fascinating this case. I mean, unfortunate, but fascinating.
It is.
Because you could just go on and on. I mean, you could look into those lives and find one thing after the next. That's why there's so many things that come up. So what do you think happened? Do you have any?
Yeah, I do have a theory.
About what the motive?
Now, it's probably it's probably totally wrong, but it's just my theory.
No, yeah.
What happened. I was always a bit concerned about the debts that the husband left her with. That's Sherrill. Yeah?
Yes.
There was never really any explanation as to why she downsized to a smaller house. Whether it was because she downsized, just to downsize for her and her daughter and get away from it all, or whether she downsized to pay off some of the debt. Or did somebody come looking for her for the debt on that night, and her daughter and Stacy being there was just unfortunate.
Lyndon, because when you're saying that, the biggest thing that I hear people discuss is who was the ultimate target. And the reason that makes sense, it's money. And she was the only one that was supposed to be there. It wasn't supposed, that is entirely possible that they came for Sherrill and the two girls were there. And the surest way to get a mother out of the house is to put a gun to your door. Just say they came in, they saw the girls. What are you going to do? The first person you're going to grab is the daughter, because of course Cheryl's going to, that's my daughter. That would make sense as far as getting them out of the house. Cheryl's going to jump.
I believe whoever it was got them out of the house because there was no scenes of struggle or anything in the house, was there?
Nothing.
So somebody got them out of the house. Now, whether he got the mother out of the house, got Sherrill out of the house, and the girls arrived,
yeah,
I don't know. And it was already out of the house because there's no sign of anything apart from the light bulb.
And they said the bed was the bed looked like somebody had slept in it. They did say the bed was ruffled, but regardless, timing wise, that doesn't. It's just a matter of when they came. We don't know when they came, and if they didn't.
Why was the living room telly on?
And why was it at it? Like, I'm trying to think of back then. Cable had come out by then, but why was it on a channel that wasn't? It was doing that wavy thing, the static.
Yeah.
That's when it's not on the right channel. How did that happen? Because if you remember before we had what we have now, if you just turned on your TV, static was automatically on. I don't know. That is another really weird thing. Why was the channel on a non-channel? I don't know.
Those boys, the two boys, Justin Reckler.
Yeah.
I think it was three boys. I think it was Justin Reckler, Mike Clay, was it, and somebody else.
Yes.
They actually ended up getting no prison time at all for that grave robbing. So what was it? And they pleaded guilty and got nothing. They got a fine, slap on the hand, but they got away with it. So what would be the point of murdering the two? The three women?
That's what I kept thinking. Like, I'm here. You barely get a slap on the hand for anything. Nothing would have happened here. So yeah, that was always a weird thing. But I'm thinking, what the hell could have happened? I'm telling you, that thing with the mom being the target rings so true to me because it doesn't make.
What is your theory then?
My theory was.
What do you think happened?
I really see. This is where I get baffled because. I know they didn't get any time for it. I was thinking those two guys, but see, the problem with this is the girls weren't supposed to be at that house that night. But regardless, I'm thinking that they came over to talk to Suzie Streeter, tried to scare her, got them out of the house to scare them, and then something just went awry. Like, it wasn't supposed to happen like that, because you never really hear about them. They've never been in the news. I mean, of all the things I watched, I've never seen them talking. It's like they just disappeared. They did the perfect crime, that kind of thing. Like, they just disappeared. Let's keep our mouth shut. We messed up. To me, I'm very much not, like, I know people were bringing up sex trafficking. I don't know. That's so convoluted to me. And the serial killer, Robert Cox, never made any sense. But what you said about the mom being the target, that, for some reason, it just rings so true to me. Although, whatever happened, I really believe in my heart was not supposed to happen. I don't think the intention was to kill that night. I think it got out of control. I don't know why I think that. Maybe because there wasn't a big disruption. There wasn't a robbery. She had the $800 in her wallet that was never taken. If it was a true robbery, they would have been ripping apart, a little bit to see, like, is there money? Is there jewelry? Everything was there. They just got those girls out. Like, let's get these girls out. So they got them out for a reason, and they never came back. So I always think something went awry. I don't think they were meant to be killed that night. I think it was an accident, and it turned out to be the perfect crime.
That's a good theory.
Yeah, because I mean,
no, I do. I think that's a great theory, because I don't believe it's sex traffickers, because I think sex traffickers would have turned up for the girls, but not for the mother.
Yes.
I don't believe that.
Yes.
I don't believe the drug deal. And as I remember, the guy who was supposed to be the drug dealer who did it was completely cleared. He was ruled out.
Yeah.
That's, to me, that sounds. I mean, the only thing that I've got with that theory is whether Justin and his mates were clever enough to get away with the rest of it.
Yeah, because I could picture, like, one of them smacking him in the back of the head, like, come on, you idiot,
Yeah.
Like, I don't even believe you're serious. I know that it's like whenever the guy put it, one of the podcasts I listened to put it perfectly. You can fit anything in, and you can discount everything. That's what makes this case so mind-blowing. It's one of those ones.
And it does. It would drive you mad.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was that Kathy Baird, I'd have gone mad.
Yes.
Because unless they find them ladies' bodies, they're never going to go anywhere with this case. Never, anywhere.
No, you're right.
It'll be just conjecture.
That's true. That's it. They never found even a hint of the bodies. I mean, that is nothing. That is the most disturbing part to me. And are they under this concrete? I mean, they've been saying that about Jimmy Hoffa, and then when they finally dig up where he was supposed to be, he wasn't there. So, I
don't think these people who did this crime were clever.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. They were clever.
Yes.
If they were going to get rid of the bodies, they would not have put them in a bit of spare ground that was going to be made into a bridge or a car park or whatever. They'd have took them out into the country and got rid of them there.
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, if they did get them that far out, at this point, their bodies are dust. I mean, does anything remain this long? I don't know. I don't even know. Doesn't eventually things, once in a while, maybe you'll find.
There'll be skeleton left.
Yeah. And then, what happens? I don't even know.
Any explanation for being dead, is there? They're definitely. I think they're definitely dead.
Yes.
I can't think of. Yeah.
I mean,
but unless they find them, and I find it in our lifetime.
Yeah.
When they do find them, they'll probably just be skeletons. They probably won't even be able. I know that's very, very sad, and I really do feel for Stacey. It's heartbreaking as a parent.
Like whenever I see these cases, the mothers just rip my heart out. I mean, the parents in general. I just seeing her, like you said, I think, my God, she doesn't. It's got to be the worst, because then you're just imagining the worst. I mean, that's torture. Yeah, my heart goes out to Stacy's mom. Absolutely.
Yeah, it does to me too. I mean, it's in, and the brother.
Oh yes.
I mean, he never got to make it up with his mum, and he's got to live with that for the rest of his life too. So, and apparently, looking at the thing I saw, he'd really cleaned his life.
Oh, he looked good.
He'd really cleaned it up.
He looked really good, yeah.
So,
oh, that was a good one, Lyndon.
Do you think
What's that?
Do you think we've solved it?
Oh, we're the best. we're Sherlock and Holmes.
You should run it past Jim and see if he thinks we've got it right.
Yes. I'm going to absolutely. I always ask him questions. I remember I was torturing him with the Zodiac. He's like, oh my God, if I hear the Zodiac one more time. I kept thinking, do you think it's him? Do you think it's him? Do you think it's him? Look at this guy. Listen to it. I'm always running my theories, and he's like, He's got his own issues.
That's brilliant. I know that I am really looking forward to the Alaskan boat one.
Oh, this one, because of the complexity, the Alaskan one is next. See, I don't know that much about boat fishing, so I'm trying to learn the terms, and it's a good story, though. I'm telling you, Lyndon, this is another rabbit hole, because I cannot imagine what happened was one day. Now the people saw it was called the Investor. It was a boat in Alaska. This guy Mark, his boat, the Investor. It was a big salmon season, and it was attached to these two other boats. Now, his wife was on the boat with him, his two kids, two deckhands. There was 8 total people that were killed, but they never really did identify 2 of the bodies, and they blamed this one guy for it, which, did he do it? Did he not? And the thing that was weird was they tried to set it on fire, but there was a lot of mistakes the guy made, although the morning that the fire was started, the guy got off on like a skiff, a little boat, and he was waving to the other people on the boat. And I do believe he was obviously doing that to not alert people of what he was doing, but that was the killer. And people said we all saw him, but there was 500 other guys in town because of the salmon fishing. So it's a real tough one. It really, I could see why they had problems with this. Yeah, it's a good one, but it's a shame because it was a family. It was the woman was pregnant, and it's sad, and it was one that was never solved. And this was like one of the top, Alaska spent so much money on these trials. They went through about 2 or 3 trials before they just closed it, because they couldn't get the one guy. I'm not even sure if the one guy was who they said it was. It's a real iffy case. There's no real, it's the same with this. There was bodies, but they were burnt, and there's not really that much evidence left behind. It's a real mystery. Yeah, it's a good one.
Great,
yeah, it's a good one.
Sounds like, yeah, it does. It sounds really good. I remember when you first put the little pen description of it up on your profile. I thought, yeah, that's going to be good.
Yeah, I got a couple people too that were like, I said, it's coming. But like you said, it takes a long time because I want it to be, yeah. With this one, it was good because I'm like, well, together, if I forgot something, you'd be here. But when you're by yourself, it's really hard because you don't want to forget anything.
If the troubles I have with editing, but I think I've cracked Audacity. So
yes, woohoo! Yeah,
will be done by Audacity.
Yeah, right. I
can't me out.
You're getting there, Lyndon.
It's not going to be an old one either.
Oh my God! Oh, that's
exciting.
I am excited.
I know.
Oh my God! And absolutely.
It's only up the road from me. And it's
really?
Me so bad that I've decided to do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be good.
I think it's 2010. That's not far back, is it?
No, not at all. That's very new. I'm telling you, it takes so long to get anymore. You need everything. You need everything to convict someone.
That's why I have to wear a hat to keep my head. My brain needs to be warm at all times. Otherwise, it just goes into a freeze. I know.
I know how that goes.
This is. I'll tell you what, though, Deb. This has been a blast.
Oh my God! Yes, and we have to do this again,
Yeah,
definitely.
We really have to do it another time.
Yes.
So we'll have to, you know, in the future, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Lyndon, so much. I love it. This is great, and I'm going to edit this and then get it right out.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no fuck.
To the right show.
And
Mistress of Murder.
Mistress of Murder. And this is Murder at Bedtime with Lyndon on YouTube and all podcasting platforms. Coming up with a new one very shortly.
I certainly am.
So
Anyway, you have a nice evening, Deb. Thank you for that, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye, Lyndon.
See you, Deb.
Bye. Okay, that was Lyndon, everybody. I'm going to give you a slight break, and then we're going to wrap it up. This is my girl, True Crime Bones.
Well, hello there, and this is clearly not WQ speaking. Hi there, this is Marissa Bones from the True Crime Bones podcast, where it's all about South Africa. And if you like listening to infamous as well as new, never before covered true crime cases, or just want to know more about the dark side of South Africa, then don't be afraid to pop on over to the True Crime Bones podcast. After you've listened to today's episode, the Right Shoe podcast, which is going to be excellent, by the way. So, without further ado, I present to you the one, the only, loved by many, an amazing host, Debbie Q.
Thank you to Marissa. Thank you to Lyndon. The sound might be a bit off because it's been I had a lot of things going on this week. I was sick for a week, and then we've had a personal issue happen that's preventing me from. I had to just do it where I literally. It's been tough. But thank you so much, Lyndon. This is Debbie Q at The Right Shoe. Of course, I don't know if we saw The Right Show, if we saw the Springfield Three, but Lyndon, I think he is absolutely onto something with Sherrill being the target, because the two girls were not supposed to be there that night. You know, as far as this Robert Cox, that always looked to me like a crock. I just don't, I'm sorry, unless, I don't know, I could be totally wrong. I just think it was something that went awry. Like I said, that's a true rabbit hole. And I suggest, if you are interested in the Springfield Three, there's no standout books that stick to me. They're written, but nothing more that you can't hear on a podcast or there's a lot, like on People Magazine Investigates. There's a Springfield 3 episode. Disappeared has an episode. It's a little old. And it's a sad thing, you know? I mean, it really is awful. And poor Stacy McCall's mother has never gotten any type of closure. My heart goes out to her that she's had to all these years not even know what happened to her daughter. So this is Debbie Q, and you're listening to The Right Show.